Hello, this is Pauline Jennings. Welcome to Musician Talk. In lieu of a sponsor this week, I want to take this time up front to thank the fine men, excellent musicians all, for the bumper music you hear on Musician Talk. It's the music you hear right now as I speak. This song is called Bring It and was written, produced, played, and recorded by Max Kirkheide, Kirk Humbert, Tim Snow, and Steve Jennings. I love this tune. It's upbeat and sweet. And I'm using the song gratis, nothing needed in return. So I guess you'd say they are a sponsor for every show. Instead of money, I get something even better, their original music. So a big thanks to Tim, Max, Kirk, and Steve, who, coincidentally or not, is this week's guest on Musician Talk. Artistic, energetic, and musical drummer Steve Jennings has experience with myriad styles including rock, classical, jazz, funk, gospel, country, and blues. Growing up in a musical household in Northfield, where he still lives, he studied a handful of instruments, but from a young age he was overwhelmingly drawn to drums, and his playing continued to develop throughout his years at Northfield High School. After graduating from Luther College countless years ago, Jennings toured the United States and Canada for 6 years with various rock bands and dance bands. Since the early 1990s, he has and continues to work professionally in the upper Midwest. This includes everything from the Dakota Jazz Club to bunkers, and at the Guthrie, Penumbra, and Children's Theaters. Plus, more music venues throughout the region than he can recall. He's produced and played on a number of recordings, including the Over and Back Band, favorites for area fans. Steve joined the faculty at McNally Smith College of Music in the fall of 2009 as the ensemble department head. When it summarily closed in December 2017, he continued doing what he loves, playing drums. Steve is a stepfather to Chris and Sam Parr, and of course, my amazing husband. Now, let's talk to Steve Jennings. Hi, Steve. Welcome to Musician
Talk. Pauline.
Welcome to Musician Talk.
It's a pleasure to be with you today.
This is not going to be awkward at all, having wife interview husband. We're going to start with how you're doing physically as far as COVID-19, all that stuff, how you're handling the isolation, how it's affecting your life.
Well, the two of us have been self-isolating.
Yes, we have, together.
And so that's been going great, I think. I had a surgery scheduled, a hip surgery scheduled, that got postponed because of COVID-19. And as they reinstated elective surgeries, I was able to get my hip surgery back online, which happened June 4th. Well, the great thing about it is that at this point, there is the time to recover and recuperate on my own body clock. And there's no pressure to play gigs, as you said. I think this is very important to be able to take a step back and think about exactly what musical directions, are next. And I find this to be true for many of my musical friends right now.
That's interesting. You've brought that up before. It's not even, I believe it's not just musicians. I think it's a lot of us. And to have the time off of work. I mean, we're just such a culture that just speeds through everything. And to be forced to take this time to reflect, not necessarily a bad thing. And I know it's done us good as far as our relationship. So that's great.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you need money to eat and it's not coming in the door, it's hard to reflect on anything. And I understand that. So
right. Or if you're considered an essential service. And
yes.
So you have to go to work and no matter what the risks. I mean, this is a whole nother deal. Now, I just saw a graph the other day that put artists at the very top of the non-essential list.
Okay, let's jump off from there about the essential nature of music. And even though during COVID it's not essential for us to play, how essential music is in our lives. But before we get to that, let's go back. My intro included that you were overwhelmingly drawn to the drums when you were little. And so I just want you to talk about that a little bit, what that felt like, what that meant to you.
Early on, I had an experience where it triggered an inner voice. I am a drummer. I want to be a drummer. And so this became kind of an inner dialogue that I have continued to access, or perhaps it's accessed me throughout my whole life. And I think it's made me feel that I'm doing the right thing. I guess I'm very fortunate in that respect, because I'm not necessarily certain that everybody, or even most people that I know, have an opportunity to do exactly what they love, exactly what they want.
That's great. What was the inception of that voice?
My dad had taken a leave of absence, and the spring of my 6th grade year, we moved to Tallahassee, Florida. I saw at a talent show 3 or 4 different drummers playing covers, playing rock songs, playing funk songs. And I knew in that moment, that's what I wanted to do.
All right. So you were playing a bunch of instruments and decided that drumming was the thing that you wanted to do. What age was that you kind of let those other instruments fall to the wayside and concentrate on drums?
I would say that I was probably 12 or 13 years old. After that Florida experience, when I came back to Northfield and started 7th grade, then I was no longer playing trumpet and violin and piano, all of which I had lessons on in the previous couple of years. I was at this point playing drums, and I started taking drum set lessons.
You know, that feeling of it felt right, drumming felt right, it felt like it fit. I have heard that from more than one musician. And I would like to dig into that a little bit further. Do you think there's a serotonin release when you played the drums as opposed to other instruments? What was the feeling that made it feel right? Can you pinpoint that?
Whether I can pinpoint it or not is a great question. But I know for a fact that there's a visceral, physical experience that happens every time I sit down at the drum. It's a release. No doubt there's serotonin. If there's an audience, there's other feedback, that's other stimuli that's happening, as well as being able to collectively create something on stage, or in the studio, or in the practice room. This is the work of the musician. But as a drummer, I am 99.9% of the time working with other people. And so that piece of it, that collective piece with humanity, it's one of the things that's inspired me to continue doing this.
You've played with people that you've been playing with for 30 years. And you also play in many situations where you're a sub and it's new people. I'm wondering what the differences are and the similarities are.
Let's start with the differences, because I think they're fairly clear. When you're playing with people you've worked with for a long period of time, you have developed a sense of intuition, of listening intuition, that allows you to understand where people are headed without knowing necessarily where they're headed. And because music is a journey. It's not like these stops. It's over time. It's over distance. So when you have more time logged with musicians, this sense of internal and external intuition allows you to express without over talking about, over listening about the music.
It's like experienced intuition, because intuition that you're talking about is something that you bring to the table after you've been playing with somebody for a long time. This intuition.
This kind of collective intuition, right?
Yeah.
So with new groups, one of the things that has to happen for everybody is your ears must be open. You must be able to listen to what is going on around you and figure out how to complement that. So you have to go into a subbing situation with a different set of ears. But you step into it, ears and eyes wide open for what can happen in the moment. You can prepare all you want for the music, but when you get there, you just have to be ready for anything to zig or zag.
And you don't have some preconceived notion or an ego that stands in the way of change or being able to zig and zag. Kurt Johnson talked about having big ears from the time he was little and how important that is. And I know that your ears in the music community in the Twin Cities makes you a hot commodity, particularly to sub, because A, you'll do your homework, and B, because of your huge ears and your lack of ego in music. So congratulations, Steve.
Well,
nicely done.
Thank you. We talked about those differences. Now, some things that are similar, whether you played with somebody for a long period of time or you're just playing with somebody brand new, the similarities come with the language. A rock beat, 4 on the floor. It's a loop. It's a pedal section. So the similarities, I believe, are in the language, and the differences are in how you approach the utilization of the language.
The musical language.
Musical language.
Right,
Yeah.
which can include a head nod, a finger twirl, or actual words.
Or rhythmic things. Craig Wasner, this fine musician I work with often. Craig can start to play something, and I know where he's going to go.
Yes, and that is a great segue into the first song that we're going to play, called
El Cumbanchero.
Okay, and why did you choose this song?
Well, I chose this song because it's just kind of a wild ride. It's fast, it's furious, it's fun, and it's the opening track on the Over and Back Band New Tracks CD. Fiddle player Mike Hildebrand, piano player Craig Wasner, bassist Gordon Oshwald, and yours truly on the drum set.
All right, well, let's take a listen. Well, Fast and Furious does not do it justice, Steve. That's wild. That is great. Nicely done.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I like to talk about the way that music matters. Just the other day, you read something about that they were cutting all funding for music and how sad that makes both of us because of how key we believe music can be in a person's life. Do you want to expand on that?
Well, I believe the state was Massachusetts, and the proposal on the table was cutting all arts funding. It's very difficult to create a metric. And by that, I mean a way to measure the impact of music and painting and theater. We all know when it's successful. We can see it in the results. But in terms of tracking it to say, boy, our teachers are doing a great job, I think it's very difficult to come up with metrics that measure this. And so therein lies part of the problem. Studies have shown that exposure and experience with music and theater and art contribute greatly to all of the other aspects of learning. So all arts help us to shape and define humanity within society and society within humanity.
Nicely put. And I'm going to just restate where you're saying that music creates a foundation for everything else, music and the arts. It can lift everything up. It makes everything better, not just in schoolwork, also in community, humanity, our relationships with one another. And I truly and wholeheartedly believe that. And that is one of the reasons I like to do this show and talk about the way that music matters. So let's take this whole idea of helping the person and bring it down to the micro level, meaning you, and how it has helped your life.
From an early age, I've been encouraged by both of my parents, Kenneth Jennings, former conductor of the St. Olaf Choir, and Carolyn Jennings, fine arts department head at St. Olaf College, and piano teacher, longtime piano teacher, composer. There's a long list there of musical attributes that both my parents had and shared with all of us. So musical development was encouraged from a very early age. I remember when I proposed this idea of splitting the cost of a drum set as a teenager, and right out of the gate, it was like, you bet, that's a great plan. Let's do that. And so that's how I got my first drum set.
So, I mean, as you grew up, you had the encouragement of your parents. How did the working on music affect you going into high school and college?
I've always been a people person. I love people. I love being around people. I love being with people. And I think that this societal element of music was greatly enhanced when I went to college. I was one of a few select freshmen that made it into the concert band, and that was a big deal at Luther College. Getting into the concert band as a freshman put me in relationship with a wide variety of musicians early on in my college career. Part of that connected me with a working musical ensemble, a country rock band. And so right away, I was working as a musician, and I could make money in college as a musician. That reinforced what I was doing to be the right thing. So once you
transitioned out of the college, young adulthood into adulthood and playing in the cities and playing as a professional, how about those relationships? Tell us about those.
Certainly one that stands out to me as being a profound developer of many of my Twin Cities relationships is my musical relationship with Sanford Moore, the piano player, arranger, composer, leader of More by Four. Sanford opened myriad musical doors for me in the Twin Cities, beginning in the early 2000s. One of those was playing at his church, which was at the time Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church. Another one of those was Penumbra Theater. I was the drummer for Dinah Was.
And you've continued to play at Penumbra since then. You've continued to play with Sanford at the church. You've continued to play with 4x4 when they have gigs. So it's huge.
It absolutely.
And Children's Theater when Sanford directs a show there. And the Guthrie, actually.
Absolutely. And I mean, there have been some profound musical expressions and relationships that have developed because of Sanford. No one else on this planet has given me opportunities as a musician like Sanford Moore has.
When you talk about being able to intuitively read somebody, I can see that happen with him because of how much you've played with him. He just moves his head a half an inch, and you know what that means, and it's just wonderful. He's been such a good friend as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting. We're living in a time of COVID, and we're also living in a very societally pivotal point.
Hopefully it's pivotal. Hopefully we're really going to have some change. Right.
And there's a jazz musician named Bob James who put out a video. He's a white piano player, and Black Lives Matter, and Black Lives Matter to him. He went on to describe all of the relationships that he's had musically and all of the acceptance of him in musical circles. And in my own way, I feel the same. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter to me because of so many working opportunities that have been afforded me because of these relationships and because people have trusted me to do the right thing in musical situations.
And trusted you as a person, and you trust them.
We're at a pivotal point of potential change. Let's hope that we get there.
Let's hope we get there. I need to jump into this next song that you picked, Steve. So let's pivot ourselves to this song from Story City, a band that you had put together years ago and made an album with. Tell us about this one.
Well, I picked this song because it's written by my friend Carl Koopman, and it is the title track on the Story City CD, Time and Materials. And it showcases a broad range of dynamics. And this is one of the things that I love about music. I love music that explores all of these different dynamic ranges. And this is a jazz tune. It's a jazz composition. And it has a fusion element because there's some rock elements with it as well. You know, to tie in with what we were just referring to earlier, we know that jazz is a Black American art form, solely American contribution to music in general is a Black contribution. This piece is an expression of that.
Got it. Thank you for that. And let's take a listen to Time and Materials. Incredible, Steve. And I think we'll leave it at that. We're out of time anyway. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining me here in our house with you in the basement and me upstairs on Zoom, because that's the way I do these interviews. Thank you so much, honey. Appreciate it.
An absolute pleasure.
Thank you to Max, Kirk, Tim, and Steve for Bring It, the Musician Talk bumper music. Mostly thank you to all of you out there for listening to Musician Talk. Tune in next week and have a terrific evening.